So if you feel like you're stuck in this cycle of trying and efforting and trying to manifest and trying to live your best life or be the best version of yourself and always feeling disappointed and always feeling like you're falling short and then beating yourself up and judging yourself, and I have to say it's a miserable place to be in. Like, I was there for a really long time, and it felt like then the more I tried to get out of that cycle, the worse that it made it. And the thing that finally freed me from all of that, that finally got me out of that cycle, was really just one line or one concept, which now is just a way of life for me, which is this, and it's to follow your excitement, as Bashar says, or follow your bliss, as Joseph Campbell says. It's really the same thing. Because the thing is that that excitement, that inspiration, that joy, or you could just call it pure desire, that it's coming to you from God. It's literally the divine speaking through you. And so so when you give in to that impulse, when you follow that impulse, what you're doing is you're literally partnering with God, and you're allowing that love, that pure love, and that pure positive energy to, and I don't mean positive like an emotion, but I just mean it's not distorted, it's not diluted in any sort of way. So you're really just giving into that, and you're really just allowing it to take you over. You're surrendering to it. And this is not the kind of surrender that we sometimes hear, where it's like surrendering in the sense of giving up, like, giving up the thing, giving up your desire. No, it's giving in, is I think a better way of describing it. It's just this pure love and this pure trust. And you're just going with that joy, and you're going with that excitement. And because, and again, when you're doing this, you're partnering with God, and God knows no limits. And so the illusory world, which is made up of limits and conditions and but what about and practicalities, like none of that carries any weight when you're partnering with God. And yes, the but what about, it does still come up from time to time. It's, yeah, it's kind of like you're just kind of flying, you're free falling, with all this joy, and sometimes your logical mind, or your rational mind, which is not trying to hurt you, it's just trying to protect you, will kind of come in and try and put the brakes on it, and then it'll say, but what about this, what about the bills that you have to pay, or what about your obligations or your responsibilities or your commitments. And anytime that voice comes up now, I just give it a pause. And because it used to be that every time that voice would come up, or the fixer self that was always insisting that there was a problem, and insisting that there was some sort of issue that needed to be addressed, whether it was something, in my physical reality, or it was just like a thought or emotion. Like, I would just have some unsettling thought, maybe some fear, maybe some doubt, or think a negative thought about somebody else, and the fixer self would come in and say, you need to address this is a problem. And I used to take that voice very seriously. And I used to just drop everything that I was doing and just go down this whole long rabbit hole of trying to get to the root of this problem. And of course, I would dig up a whole another set of problems in the process. And so it pulled me completely off the path, as I can very clearly see it now. And so it was like I was in the joy. I was going, towards my, desire and my vision, and everything was flowing. But then when I would run off to attend to these supposed problems, all of a sudden I was back in that illusory world again. I was playing the role of the fixer self again, the fixer self and the manager self. And those two just cannot coexist. And the good news is, though, that the God self the I am, it exists independently of any circumstances and any yeah, and every now moment is a clean slate. So even if you find yourself getting off course in any given moment, you can always direct yourself back to the center again, back to the truth again. And it could even just be taking again, just a moment to pause and ask yourself, well, what if there wasn't a problem? Or, who is this self? Who is this person who feels the need to go and fix these supposed problems, or wants to, feels like they have to see everything as being some sort of crisis. And the more I do that, the more I just take that moment to pause and not treat every single thing as a crisis like I used to. The more and more I am guided by that God presence, and I find myself in that flow and in that excitement, and I find myself getting pulled out of it less and less. And it's like I it's a bog is the best way I can describe it. It's like being stuck in a bog where you just feel frustrated and you feel like nothing is working, and you feel like the more you try, like the worse the situation gets. But then if you stop you feel like you can't really stop trying either, because then it would just fall apart. And so yeah, so it's just not a very good place to be in at all. And but I found the more I just return to that presence, to that God presence, and the more I follow that impulse, the more I follow that excitement, the less that I get stuck in the bog. And so this is a lot of this is just kind of like a note of encouragement if you found yourself ever stuck in the bog, and just to let you know that it really is that simple. And because I think myself included, we try to add all these, or we feel like we need to add all these layers of complication and convolution, like it can't possibly be that simple. And so even though when I first heard that phrase, follow your excitement, and it really resonated with me, but at the same time it's like, no, it can't possibly be that easy. And so I continued to chase all these rabbit holes, and I continue to, yeah, even trying to kind of think of it from the premise of, trying to get in a specific state, and kind of thinking about, okay, well, the person who has my desire, what would they be doing right now? And again, there's nothing wrong with that, but I was going about it in a very mechanical way. And, and, it was all coming from this place, again, from this place of efforting and trying, and I'm realizing more and more that you don't have to address, every single little thing, because it all comes from the same premise of being the separate self. And when you feel like you're the separate self, that's when you feel like you have to manage everything, and you constantly have to stay vigilant, and you're constantly having to stay on top of your mind, and and make sure you're not thinking too many negative thoughts, or entertaining doubt, or entertaining scenarios that you don't really want. And but when you just follow your joy, when you follow your excitement, that need to manage, that need to fix, it just gradually starts to fall away. And I'm realizing too that, yeah, for me, my excitement is my fiction, is writing fiction and just expressing myself creatively, creative expression. And for so long, I restrained these creative impulses. I stifled them and repressed them, and because I had bought very deeply into the whole starving artist stereotype. And so I felt like I had to constantly be doing something practical. And I felt like I had to earn my right to then enjoy the ability to express and create. So I tried to play the role of the businesswoman and take all these business courses, and I thought, well, once I have the money and once I have the stability, then I can express myself creatively, and then I can, just write, whenever I want to. And I just found that that day never came. And I recognize now that it was a gift, that none of these none of these courses or none of these attempts to be practical really brought me any sense of lasting success. And I think because they were all built on a faulty premise. And they were all built on the premise of fear and scarcity and not giving in, not allowing my desires, which come from God, which come from love, not allowing that to lead, instead allowing the fear to lead and the lack to lead. And yeah, and the thing is that as much as it can be helpful to have like tools and checklists and all of that, but they all still come from the mind. And even all the manifestation techniques, and again the trying to be in the state to the person who has your desire, and thinking about, okay, well, what would this person be doing? All of that just comes from the logical mind. And so therefore it is subject to the distortions and the limitations of the logical mind. And yeah, you might be able to get bang out some successes here and there, but it's never going to get you to the same level of success that you would achieve if you were partnered with God, because God knows no limits. Love knows no limits. And it's hard to fully put into words until you've actually been there. But when I finally just, said, F it, it's not the other way. Going about it the other way isn't getting me anywhere. So I really have nothing to lose. And really just giving in to yeah, to my creative expression, like life just feels so much fuller and so much richer and more joyful, and everything's flowing now, and there's no more proving and no more trying to convince, and everything just feels like a pure expression, this fear of feeling of rejection, and that's no longer there anymore, because the trying to prove myself is no longer there, because that's what I was doing before. It felt like I was always trying to perform and trying to prove myself and trying to fit myself into this box that I just wasn't meant for me. And so yeah, whenever and so see this too, like see your desires as just being a gift from God. Don't try to repress them, don't judge them, don't second guess them. Like, is this an egoic desire or is this a pure desire? And at the same time, don't try and force yourself to want things that aren't actually resonating with you, that aren't actually coming from the heart, trying to force yourself to stay in a situation that just isn't fitting. Or, yeah, like with me, like I stopped, reading fiction or reading like certain types of books or listening to certain types of music because I thought it wasn't spiritual, or it was just too negative. And I was really just repressing parts of myself, or all of myself really, like in the process. And so yeah, just doing whatever you feel called to do with no judgment at all, because judgment, I feel like, is another thing that keeps us stuck and keeps us in that cycle of efforting and striving and never feeling like enough, because God doesn't judge. And just so you're clear, I'm sure you are, but I'm not talking about a man in the sky. I'm talking about pure awareness, that pure loving presence. And yeah, just seeing anytime these desires, this spontaneous excitement comes up, just seeing that as a portal, and just being intrigued as to where this portal will take you. Like I remember years and years ago, I got this brochure in the mail, and or maybe it was an email, I don't quite remember, but it was about the being the six-figure rider, or the wealthy, I forget exactly how they put, the barefoot rider, that's what it was, the barefoot rider. And it was saying, that being a rider, you don't have to be pour, and it was this picture of somebody like sitting on the beach, with their laptop and a martini in this tropical location. And I remember seeing that, and something about that image just captivated me. Even though I would not recommend, taking your laptop on the beach, like sand and computers don't really mix, just from experience. But yeah, it's something about that image just captivated me, and yeah, it's like it took me into this portal, and I went down this whole path of this is when I first started pursuing freelance copywriting, and years later, when I was and this is well after I was already making a living as a freelance writer. And one of the great perks is that you literally can write from anywhere. And so they really weren't. Really wasn't an empty promise when they said the barefoot writer, because you can sit, barefoot and write, on your laptop. You don't have to wear, a suit and drive through rush hour traffic and go to an office. And so yeah, I just remember I was in this tropical um, beach in Mexico, and I was sitting on this hammock at the hotel where I was staying at, and I was looking out at the beautiful blue water and the white sand, and I just got this visual because it was just my laptop and then my feet. And it was almost like the image in the brochure from the Barefoot Writer. And I was like, wow, I'm really living that reality now. But I did not do it in any sort of mechanical way. Like I did not, I didn't even, when I first saw that brochure, I don't think I'd ever even heard of manifestation then. And so it's not like I spent, hours, visualizing it or falling asleep to it every night. And there's nothing, again, there's nothing wrong with any of that, but I'm just speaking about what's worked best for me. And I would say what's worked best for me is just feeling that excitement, feeling that joy, feeling that spark. And it doesn't even have to be, it doesn't have to be anything big or grand. It can be anything. It can be like, oh, it'd be nice to go out for a walk today, or it'd be nice to try this new cafe that I've never been to today. It can literally be anything. And just following that and just seeing where it takes you. And I think more and more you'll find that, yeah, that you're being led by this divine hand. And you'll find that life just flows more and more effortlessly. And so I trust that this has resonated with you. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.